Welcome everyone to the first JumpCloud Deep Dive of 2026. I'm Joanna Ng from the product marketing team here at JumpCloud, and I'll be your host for today's session. So we are kicking off the year with a high impact topic, and I'm thrilled to have Sergi Ballas here with me. Sergi, why don't you give the audience a quick introduction?
Absolutely. Hey, everyone. Really good to be here. My name is Sergi Bellis. I'm the principal product manager in our devices team. So I oversee all things end user platforms. So excited to join you, Jorena, and all our audience out there.
Thank you, Sergi. So, today we are tackling what is probably the biggest shift in Apple device management in over a decade. Declarative Device Management or DDM. So for years, IT admin have relied on the imperative model, a system where the server send a command and then wait, sometimes seems like forever, for the device to acknowledge and then reply. So, but the landscape is changing. So Sergi, let's start with telling us about Apple DDM. And if you, the audience, have thoughts or questions for Sergi, feel free to share that in the chat.
Yeah, absolutely. This is exciting. Yeah, we'll go into what exactly it is, and then we'll talk about more details in great depth here. So, the Apple MDM protocol historically has been called imperative or reactive protocol, meaning each management workflow takes time. It's multiple round trips between both the device or the endpoint and the MDM server, the JumpCloud MDM server. And that compounds performance challenges and really the future of device management when it comes to Apple MDM is declarative. It's a transformative update that Apple has been working and developing for quite some time. It allows for a device to be a couple of things, autonomous and proactive, really freeing up the server, the MDM server, to be more lightweight, reactive, and really subscribe to those updates without having to constantly pull the device. So an autonomous device really starts reacting to its own state changes. So, really excited to talk about this. Let's go on to the next slide and really break out some of the more technical pieces associated with it. So, with DDM or declarative device management, there are four types of declarations. The first declaration is a configuration. You may find it very similar to what is an Apple MDM existing profile payload. So configurations represents policies that are being applied or configurations being applied to the device. And for an example, you're trying to configure a account or settings or a Wi-Fi restriction, something in that capacity. An asset is the next type of declaration. An asset typically represents a reference to some additional or auxiliary data needed for that first declaration or configuration. And it can be a shared item of large information. For example, imagine something like a user certificate that you can now reference with multiple different configurations. An activation is a unique one. This is one that gives you a lot of flexibility to MDMs to how they want to deploy certain configurations. And an activation represents a set of configurations that a device will anatomically apply. It means that all the configurations in that set, along with any reference assets, must be valid in order for them all to apply. Meaning, if any of them are invalid or are not applicable, at that point, the activation will fail to apply that policy. And the last one is management declaration. Management declarations are used to really convey the overall management state to the device. It means it includes a declaration which describes the details about the organization and really the capacities of in this case, the JumpCloud MDM server. It's really helpful to convey just static information to the device. So this is a very high level overview of the four types of declarations that are now being applied throughout the JumpCloud MDM framework. The second major piece or second pillar of declarative device management is the actual status channel. Updates of the device state are sent in what is called a status report to the server. The server or the JumpCloud MDM server can subscribe to specific details that it wants to receive so that it will only receive updates when a change happens. Status is identified in what you can see here on the screen as a key path. There's many of them that Apple has continued to iterate upon, and really it is empowering us to receive incremental updates um, we're not constantly polling. Really, once the status of the declaration, whether they've been applied or not, it will continue to report to the server moving forward.
So a lot to take in, right? Seems like there's a lot of change to this new management system. So why does this matter for IT day-to-day operation? Can you break down the impact or talk about the advantages of DDM?
Absolutely. So if we go to the next slide, one of the things, it's a very simple slide, and I want to speak to it specifically. I already mentioned these two words, but I want to go into a little bit greater depth. Autonomous and proactive. Declarative device management is powerful because it enables the endpoints, the devices, to be both of those things. The device is now autonomous, as in it reacts to its own state changes and then applies management logic to itself without being constantly prompted by the server. The device no longer has to be sort of mothered or nagged by the server. Instead, the server informs the device of its desired state, and the device will work to that. In that case, the device is proactive. That means that the status channel will asynchronously report to the server when there's a true worthy change that has occurred on the device, meaning the server doesn't have to poll, and the device will let it know within seconds of that state change.
Mm-hmm. And I love the word autonomous here, right? Because it relates to efficiency gains here. So now, IT, you no longer need to constantly check in with the server, every time there's a request for any minor changes, right? So again, drastically reduces any server overhead and network traffic, and of course, IT resources and stuff like that. So I think that's a good change. It sounds like a good change. And then, let's talk more about the benefit.
Correct. So those were the really high level notions of how DDM will sort of be enhanced on top of that. But let's talk about the benefits that we as JumpCloud, the developer of the MDM or other MDM services, and how our customers benefit. We're going to break those out into two sections. The first one is really for JumpCloud, being the developer of the MDM solution. Declarative allows for our servers to be lightweight and reactive in that now we can more closely be mapping how organizations are structured, meaning changes are now more intuitive. Status reports are providing a rich feedback channel, enabling our server to monitor devices more effectively and present pertinent information in the UI and to the admin within a more reliable fashion without really having to build out complex algorithms on the back end. Really, this hopefully streamlines our development efforts and enables us to focus on new capabilities that DDM continues to release, or Apple through the DDM protocol. And then for our customers, the IT administrators that are on this call are listening, the declarative approach really inspires more confidence in the state of the device or the expected state, in the sense that in the situation that the device is not in its ideal state, that is, it's not in a safe state that protects the device. If it's not in the state that you desire, it will work to get in an appropriate state to protect the organization's data, even when the connectivity to the server may be severed for a duration of time. It provides critical feedback, really, from the device via the status reports, driving efficiency, less utilization. Therefore, you can deploy more and more devices, and really from a organization's perspective, your devices are more responsive, reliable experience, and a quicker recovery time and better support to the overall organization.
Yeah, so it seems like Apple think this through a lot when they push DDM out, because we're just not talking about IT admin here. The developers will be happy, and of course, end user customers, right? The main people, right, who will be using it will be happy. So that's great, because sometimes, when things get pushed out, it's always like, oh, we are only cater to this area. The other personas or the other target audience have to wait a little bit. So with DDM, it's like when you push it out, like everybody see the benefits at the same time. So I think that's a good thing again. So why does this, again, a common question, right, we hear from our customers is, does DDM actually replace MDM, right? Mobile device management. So the short answer, I hope everybody know, is absolutely not. But Sergi, can you help clarify that further?
Absolutely. This is not a scenario where it's one versus the other, really. That's a confusion that I've seen in the market at times. Really, DDM is a framework that builds on top of, it is additive to Apple MDM. Doesn't mean that we're picking up and throwing away the MDM protocol. In fact, we're expanding upon it, and it builds on the foundation that Apple has set. There are some caveats. Really, Apple over the several years has shifted and continued to add capabilities through the DDM protocol because it's better, it's more responsive, and more beneficial to us and to our customers. And Apple has come out and stated that the focus of future protocol features will be and is now the declarative device management. Over the course of several years, they've continued to add certain use cases and address use cases. And we have started seeing with the 2025 WWDC that Apple will now start deprecating certain features that are in the MDM protocol, certain commands, in favor of what is already offered, meaning they have built out a comparable or if not a better alternative through DDM, and they are encouraging the MDM providers to use those latest and greatest features. We'll actually get into some of those later in the slides.
So at JumpCloud, we have built our platform to embrace both this hybrid reality. So rather than, forcing you or IT admin to choose one over the other, we support both MDM and DDM in tandem. So our goal is actually to take the complexity out of this transition, right? Giving you a unified console to actually manage your fleet evolution at your own pace. But what does this actually look like in practice? So Sergi, let's dive deeper and look at specific use cases where we see today where DDM's autonomy truly shine for an IT admin.
Yeah. If we stay here for a sec, one of the things that I want to underscore is JumpCloud has been developing or utilizing the DDM protocol for quite some time. In fact, middle of last year, we released the status channel reporting. So a number of our UI elements when you go to your device details, the OS version, the status of the applications, or things like that have now been supplemented by the status channel or the status reports. However, when it comes to true features or use cases that are driven, the first one and the primary one that we've been focusing on is the next one before us. That is OS patch management. So if we hop over to the next slide, there's a couple of things. One is we're actively in private preview. And if you want to participate in the private preview, feel free to reach out to your account manager. But we're actively in it when we have a target to GA our DDM OS patching within the next month or so. So be on the lookout for more details from our general marketing team, as well as for myself and some of the communication there. Let's hop into greater detail about OS patching, since it's been a hot topic, really, of discussion. So really on the screen before you, what you are seeing is probably a culmination of a couple of years of customer feedback to us on the Schedule OS update functionality as a whole. And it really, it's more broadly speaking to the legacy patching capabilities that Apple offered. Apple in this time has iterated quite rapidly over the last couple of years, and we're confident that they basically addressed majority of these capabilities in the DDM protocols. So customers often want to see a level of control and precision associated with it, and how that will reflect in the user experience. Customers are asking and submitting feature requests to us and generally to Apple about, I want to be able to enforce certain versions. I want to be able to patch iOS. I want to be able to have some level of control of beta builds. Or, hey, I don't want my CTO to be presenting and to be disrupted when he or she is in a different time zone. How do I adjust that? Well, with DDM OS patching, that experience is evolving. You'll be able to schedule and control those notifications, and it'll have improved end user deferral options. They'll have a native support of those notifications, meaning if you're in light mode or dark mode, respond accordingly. And that linking to the settings application is going to be refined. We're no longer going to be using that third-party nudge software to prompt you to do that dot release or the major release. And in fact, one of the fun things is standard users, meaning the non-administrative users will now be able to perform their updates without having to be elevated into permission sets. Let's dive a little bit into what the declarations entail. So we talked about those 4 types of declarations. Well, there's 2 specific ones, specific configuration declarations that Apple has introduced over the last couple of years. The first one is the software update enforcement specific and the software update settings. These 2 form the foundation of Apple's modern OS update management model. And we're going to dive a little bit deeper into each and every one of them as we keep going. So in the next slide, we'll notice a couple of things. The software update enforcement specific. What does this declaration really do? Well, it allows us to specify the OS version down to optionally the build version and a local date time that you want your end users to have that version available. Meaning it's ensuring that you reach a known approved OS state. And really how it works is you as the administrator will have the opportunity to go and create a new policy. You will declare that OS version from a dropdown of available known OS versions and builds. You'll be able to determine when you want that implemented by a certain deadline. And this will really ensure that true version-based enforcement, meaning in the scenario where you have to react, there's a dot release that has some security vulnerability or there's an incident and you want to rapidly get everyone to a specific minimum version, you'll have that capability in place. With the next declaration on the end, that's the software settings. So if we go to the next slide, Joanna, the software update settings, that declaration gives you even more granularity. So one was just nudging you or forcing you to a specific version. This one really starts curating the experience that an end user has in the settings application. You as an administrator will have the opportunity to find automatic downloads, automatic installations, whether or not you want your users to have access to the rapid security responses, deferral behaviors, as well as whether or not you want to allow, force, or completely block the usage of beta builds. Really, you will do so in our automated patch policy. You will select, we've broken them out into intuitive sections where you'll do a configuration, and the devices at that point will be in a continuous self-managed state, meaning you're not going to have to send continuous updates every single time. And instead, it'll really adhere to a set and forget OS update automation flow. Similar to how you've experienced with our previous patching policy, except this is more refined and standardized. It standardizes your updates across both Apple macOS, Apple iOS, and iPad OS.
Yeah, so I think this is so exciting. You know, everything is automatic, right? Remove all the manual process. So I think for IT admin, it really is good actually if you take the time initially, right, to understand what it does, make sure you know how to implement, what to expect, and then implement it. Because like you said, set and forget, right? Then go do your next thing on your priority list, right? So make sure you are familiar, you know, what with all the settings and all the policy and all the updates, and then go implement it. So so it sounds like a good revamp. And I love what Brenda just said here. So super happy that macOS updates are getting a revamp. Yes, finally,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah, it's been a long time coming, and this is what we're actually going to be delivering. So the patch management section in our admin console will have a macOS and a new iOS policy that you can configure. We still have the legacy macOS policy, which uses schedule OS update. We have plans to get that deprecated towards the end of the year because starting with macOS 27 and iOS 27, will no longer be applicable. So we're giving a level of time so that you can have both. We strongly encourage you to switch over and start testing the new capabilities once they are generally available for you, because we have very strong confidence in that particular notion. Yeah, so the question of replacing Nudge. Nudge is essentially being picked up and thrown out the door, to put it roughly, or because ultimately we will be relying solely on the Apple MDM or DDM capabilities. So the nudging capabilities will be handled by Apple natively, and you'll see the Apple notifications telling you the general enforcement versions, the enforcement deadlines, and nudging you to either get more details or to install now or to defer to later. So that is going to be native, hence dark mode, light mode, things like that. So if you're looking on this particular screen, a couple of things to call out, both iOS and macOS as done. And then we've done some level of research and talking to you, our customers, on what has been confusing about our previous or our legacy macOS policy. And sometimes what is a deferral timeline? What is a grace period? How does that get sequenced? We tried to refine that such that in the new UI that is more intuitive and clear on how you're actually getting that in place. So we'll come back to a demo here in a little bit, Drana. I think I'm eager to showcase some of that live for this audience. But let's keep going to some of the other use cases, and we'll circle back around. So next piece that I want to mention is policy management. So because we're implementing declarations, and the first two that are on top of mind for us are those two that we just already called out about us patching, we are also looking to tackle broadly our policies, and that's in active development with our engineering teams, and we expect things to come out over the course of 2026. So if we go to the next slide, you'll see a couple more details there. So our general plan is we will be transitioning our legacy macOS and iOS configuration policy. So we have 80 or so macOS policy, 30 or so iOS policies. We're going to be adding more of those, basically finishing out the MDM spec. But on top of that, we will be wrapping them in the legacy profile declaration. The reason being is the install profile command itself is going to be deprecated in favor of the legacy profile declaration deployment. And then from a roadmap perspective, new policies that Apple continues to release through the DDM protocol will be scheduled to be built out and released in 2026 as well. The next piece, this is probably one of the more exciting pieces that we've been working on in the background, is it's on the roadmap for 2026, and we're setting certain pieces already foundationally into the platform. Let's go on and go speak to particular details there. If you press one more button, I think build out the slide. There we go. Perfect. So we are going to also be transitioning from the legacy commands to the app managed declaration, meaning the install application and install enterprise application commands will be reduced in usage. We won't be able to necessarily rip it and replace it instantly because there's some uniqueness where macOS 26 is the declaration in which app managed the minimum OS version for macOS. So we will have to have a coexistence story for those macOS 14 and 15 devices that are not yet on the latest and greatest operating system. But that really will enable things like optional or required installation via the self-service app catalog, and it'll come to both macOS and to iOS. We'll also be working on a more robust VPP app management. So for those that have at times faced some challenges with auto updates on VPP, that will hopefully be mitigated. And then a more granular app configurations. On the screen, you see is a rendering of our proposed self-service app catalog for macOS. So that's something excited, and the team's already setting those foundational pieces. So we're diligently working, and some of that will be backed by DDM protocols. And then on iOS, that will be primarily or solely the DDM protocol there. So I know it's queued up a little bit of questions there, but Drana, handing this back over to you for a few minutes.
Thanks, Sergi. That's so insightful. So for IT admins, right, and company listening today, what's the best move? Some advice here, right? So just like, should they wait for the technology to mature? Sometimes it's like, oh, wait, make sure they clean up everything and then do nothing in the meantime. Or should they start diving into it? Because there are things deprecating by 2027, right? So you don't want to miss the boat or be in lurch, right, of not knowing what's happening in the dark for that. So what's your take on that, Sergi?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very good question. I love our community, our audience, our customers. Some of them are on the bleeding edge. Some of them have more conservative postures that they have to control because they're maybe working in a regulated industry or whatnot. So the broad answer is start testing early. For those of you in the private preview for OS patching, that's one of the key features that requires manual configuration because we have a legacy or existing policy structure, you're going to be able to, when we go GA, enable those new policies, a net new one completely for iOS, and then a replacement one for macOS. Start off with a small subset if you're comfortable. See the experience. I would suggest you not run coexistence in terms of on the same device have both the legacy and the new DDM policy, but they will basically work together. The DDM one will supersede that. So if you have both the schedule OS update and the DDM one, so there is some logic built in by both Apple and by us and how we perceive that, but we encourage you to participate in that. As we release policies, the intent for us is to handle most of that behind the scenes so that there's not a disruption. We don't want our customers to have to go redeploy or reevaluate every single policy. So that will be a behind the scenes evaluation process. And then when it comes to the software or app management capabilities, most of those, again, will be highly behind the scenes. We'll build it into the platform. We'll make the necessary announcements so that you are aware of the caveats. Some of that, right, we won't necessarily change the default behavior of applications being force installed initially, but we will give you the ability to have an on-demand or available application once you've comfortably deployed the self-service app catalog for both macOS and iOS. So be on the lookout for that. Encourage a measured approach. In some cases, be on the bleeding edge. In other cases, evaluate and make sure you're comfortable. Make sure you test your use cases and you're satisfied with that. If not, provide feedback to us. We're happy to respond quickly and make the necessary changes to make sure that it satisfies your particular use cases.
Yeah, so I guess the advice is really do something about it. Don't do nothing, right? So either test it out and play with it. If you're not comfortable, find out more information, see what you can do. If you're already a JumpCloud customer and have not been using our Apple MDM solution, I don't know why, but do that, right? And then we will help you along with DDM if you have questions along the way. So so take that in stride. So especially if you're new, to IT, you're new to managing devices, Apple devices, and the whole OS system, etc. So take heart to that. And with that, let's take a look at the demo that you have been talking about, Sergi. I think this will really get everybody excited. I'm going to stop sharing for a little while so that you can show your demo.
Absolutely. Thank you. So we're looking at that. Let's see.
And after the Sergi's demo, we'll take a look at the chat again, because I know you guys have some question over there.
Correct. Yeah, we definitely want to address those questions. So keep those coming. And if anything in the demo shakes out for you, let me know as well. So really, I'm going to try and narrate through some of this because it's a 3.5-minute recording. So my colleague Shanaves had done this corresponding recording as we've been building out some of the DDM capabilities. So really the scope here is if you go into policy management, you'll be able to navigate to patch. You'll see we've already denoted the new iOS and macOS policies and have denoted the legacy pieces. So if we hop in, I want to pause here for a split second and showcase the level of depth. So you will see a general section. You will see an automatic actions. You'll see a rapid security response and a beta update section, meaning we wanted to surface the most typically critical pieces towards the top, and then you can make the necessary choices. So if you're looking at the screen at that moment, we have selected to make sure to outline both the major and minor default options up front. You'll be able to select. That's really a matter of how long does the end user not see a particular major version? It's completely not visible after a release date. That's the major, minor, and system non-OS update options. Beyond that, you'll see other capabilities and whatnot that you have the level of granularity to select. The one thing that I want to call out specifically is so with the macOS, you'll have the context, you'll be able to filter through those capabilities. And I think in this case, we're showcasing some of the nuances there. When you go to select enforcement, if you toggle that on, that essentially kicks in the software update enforcement specific payload it sort of merges two payloads together here. And then you get to specify a grace period. Grace period is intended of after the deferral window, meaning once an OS version becomes, whether it's major or minor, becomes available and visible to the end user, how much time do you want the end user to see it for, and what is their deadline? So the deadline will be done in days, and then you will be able to specify a local device time for enforcement, meaning when you set 11:30 a.m., you don't specify a time zone. If I'm traveling from the East Coast to the West Coast, or if I'm traveling to London or to Bangalore, my device will adjust in my local time zone. Meaning, if it's 11:30 a.m. set as a declaration, meaning I will be enforced by 11:30 a.m. If I'm in London, that's when it is. If I happen to travel to Denver to our main offices, then it will be according to that time zone. So it makes the adjustments easier to plan. Meaning, I'd probably suggest that you not schedule something in the middle of your typical day. You have the flexibility of early morning, early evening, depending on how you want to do that. And then there's particular nudging that Apple enforces of how they will prod you along the way. So those are a couple of details to call out as we skip through some of these things. It has a level of granularity. And as we set this is an example of what that notification will look like. If you are overdue, for example, it will pop up, it'll say a managed update. It will specify the version that has been set, and it will inform you of when that timeline is in place. So if you happen to go on vacation and you then come back and your IT team has said, hey, you have to be on, let's say, 26.3, which is currently in beta, by a certain period of time, and you happen to go on vacation, come back, it will prompt you. You will have about an hour to complete that associated update. It will do the necessary downloading, and then pending you have the network and battery levels at the right level, then it will go through that. And we have some of those nuances down detailed in our KB articles for greater detail. So if you open that particular notification, you'll see the outline details that it's been overdue and it's a enforcement. It gives the end user more clarity. And again, this is built directly in the native UI, so it's not a JumpCloud translation of that or whatnot. So that's a particular example there. And then one other example I want to showcase is the specific enforcement. So we were showcasing the patch policies themselves, but we have a standalone enforcement policy. This is where you would use that for precision, where you need a one-off emplacement or enforcement, and you say, I want 26.2. You can opt for a build version, and then you specify a particular time. You can tweak with that. You can set AM, PM, whatever's at your discretion. It'll go through that process. And similarly, once you set and deploy it, it will, save and deploy that, and you'll see that manifest in one of the versions. A couple of seconds later, as he's showing a live demo here or live recording, it will pop up within a few seconds and inform the end user that they are now set to or encouraged to enforce that. So that's another example where you're going to be able to nudge particular delinquents. And as you click on it, it starts the downloading process. And because it's aware that you need to be adhering to that, and then it'll nudge you and then force restart the device when it's appropriate and turn off the particular applications there. So really, this is a very, very high level crash course through some of these capabilities. I'm excited to answer any particular questions that there may be. So, but before we go into that, maybe Joanna, we can run through some of the questions, make sure the audience has those addressed.
Questions that we can actually talk about. So I think, Sergey, you already answered the question that will it replace Nudge? Yes. So, and Brandon and even Keith wants to know if they want a more pushy experience, right? Do they have to do it manually, like set up move DDM OS reminder manually in this case?
Yeah, so I think there's been some third-party software that's been released that you can effectively deploy if you want to nudge them more aggressively. Apple has a progressively more aggressive model. So once you define an enforcement deadline, every 24 hours you will get a notification. As you come within the last 24 hours before that deadline, they increase significantly to be hourly. And then as you approach it within the last hour, there's I believe the 60-minute, 30-minute, 20, 10, and then you are overdue. If there's a need or a desire for be more aggressive, then yes, you have those capabilities, or you will have those capabilities to deploy that software to really nudge them along. But we're currently adhering to the provided Apple standard.
Yeah, so like put in a customer request if that's what you really want to be super aggressive in the way you push it. So that's the advice here. And then Stuart wants to know, will the nudge be removed from the machine by JumpCloud, or is it, do they need to do this, or is it from Apple?
Fair question. So we're still, because the legacy policy structure remains available and still active, we'll get more details out as we get closer to the deprecation of that and how that particular cleanup will go into effect. But that's a valid question. So definitely want to make sure we address that in our FAQs as we go to deprecation.
Okay, and then Keith, of course, is super excited about the app catalog. Stuart's too.
Yes, everyone is excited about that one. Excited to get that into the hands of our customers. We're doing good work. We've heard a lot of feedback, and keep that coming, right? I see Brandon's question about other app type support. I'm assuming this is in relation to private repo or private repository support. Our software management or app management roadmap for 26 and beyond is quite robust. So self-service app catalog is very big. Our JumpCloud catalog experience as well, those the agent-driven updates. We're putting refinements in how applications prompt you, whether when you get update, when you're not in the application or if it's not running. We will be adding new app types outside of just non-PKGs. The DMGs will be added, EXEs will be added into the broader JumpCloud private repo support, and those app types will ultimately be expected to all appear in the self-service app catalog to the end users.
Okay. This is an interesting question from BC about, the new DDM declaration. You can set off frequency to remind end user to update, like 1 hour before, etc. But there's not much flexibility around the messaging. So in this case, do the IT admin also need to rely on nudge to help fill the gap? What's your take here, Sergi?
Yeah, so I think our objective is to implement the DDM protocol. Third-party software can, as mentioned before, can be used to over-communicate to your audience. From that context, I think that when you enforce automatic downloads and an automatic installation with this protocol, we think that the general underlying prerequisites will get fulfilled much quicker. So at that point, it'll be the current or the showcased managed update notification. If you do want to deploy more software to really more aggressively push your audience or remind them or to be overly prescriptive, then yes, you absolutely have that capability. And provide us feedback as you see something if you want us to incorporate some more capabilities beyond that. I think from our context, we've implemented every essentially key associated to both the declarations. If there's feedback we want to offer back to Apple in terms of what they can maybe enhance in the future into the DDM protocol to give us flexibility, we definitely want to make sure we can do that as well.
Yeah. What about, will app reinstall be ready from day one on JumpCloud Apple App Management?
Reading through. So I think there's been a number of app reinstall challenges about when I have to retry or reinstall a particular application. We're actually looking to address some of those capability or challenges or issues proactively before even the release of the self-service app catalog. But beyond that, the general notion is if it's optional, the end user will have an avenue where they can reinstall it themselves. If it's forced installed, we have certain retry logic built into the JumpCloud agent, both on the Windows and the Mac OS side.
Okay, and then there's a question about, do we support Mac package manager like Homebrew?
Yeah, so we do not have that implemented. We opted to build the package manager directly into the JumpCloud agent on the macOS side, and we're rapidly adding applications. We still have the self-hosted option. We have the private repo, which will expand in app types, and we have the Apple VPP store that supports both the public and custom applications or the B2B applications. So our objective or goal, Alex, is to continue to iterate on the JumpCloud catalog to make sure it's fleshed out with applications. We're, in fact, using some level of AI to accelerate, making sure we're growing that from 25, 30, and rapidly getting those application lists to over 100 plus quite quickly of the most frequently requested. We track each and every feature request of customers that submit that they want an Mac OS or Windows application for this platform. So or into the catalog, and we definitely are accelerating how we put those out into market for you to be able to leverage.
And Stuart is like, oh, can we preview the new feature yet?
So depending on which feature, OS patching, yes, we are in private preview with that. Policy management, that will be iterative, so that's not in preview, and we will definitely launch we will have a call for nominations to your account executives and your CSMs for the self-service app catalog. So be on the lookout. That's going to be a little bit towards the probably middle of the year here. We'll probably have more details dropping probably in Q2 as we have more things finalized in the back end. So yes, Stuart, definitely encourage you to participate in the broader audience. We want to have you participate. If there are kinks, nuances, let us know. We want to be responsive to those and address them as they come our way.
Yeah, and even for like customers who are not JumpCloud customers yet want to try our platform, right? Go to our website and you can start a free trial and play with the whole platform, our patching, DDM, etc. when it is available at no cost to you for a month, and then and see if we can help you more over there. And with that, I think thanks so much for all the chat. We can go on to the next couple of slides. So we are now actually less than a month away from JumpCloud Land. So it's all happening on February 10. And I would love to invite all of you to register for the virtual event if you have not already done so. We have lined up some incredible sessions covering everything from AI, security, and of course, the JumpCloud product roadmap. So G will also be there. So even if you can't make it to the whole event, I still highly recommend that you sign up for it anyway, because you will have full access to all the recordings to watch at your own pace later on. So with that, I think we have reached the end of today's deep dive. Thank you, all of you, for spending part of your day with us. We hope the insight into Apple DDM helped you to navigate your 2026 planning with more confidence and clarity. And of course, a huge shout out to and thank you to Sergi for sharing his expertise and giving us such a clear look at the future of Apple management. I always have so much fun and with presenting and hosting with Sergi. So thank you, everybody. Have a fantastic rest of your day, and we look forward to seeing you at the next JumpCloud Deep Dive.
Thank you, everyone. Really appreciate you, to our community, our customers, and our prospects here. It's been lovely, and look forward to sharing more details at JumpCloud Land. Thank you.